At exactly 11:59 tonight, everyone on Earth will forget how to lie. Nobody knows what happens at midnight.
The night the world forgot how to lie.
It started as a rumor, then a warning. Then, by evening, certainly nobody could explain, but everybody believed. At the stroke of midnight, every human being on Earth would become physically incapable of lying. Not morally incapable, not persuaded, physically unable. A switch flipped in the architecture of mind by no one anyone could name. Scientists had no theory. Governments had no statement. All anyone had was 11 hours and the sudden, terrifying awareness of every lie they were currently living inside of. In a modest house outside Columbus, Ohio, a man named Peter Holloway sat across from his wife of 19 years and realized he had less than half a day left to decide what kind of husband he wanted to be caught as. 3 miles away, a woman named Raina Cho was closing out her last shift as a financial advisor, quietly, calmly, moving client funds into an account with her name on it. She had built her entire career on numbers that were true enough to pass and false enough to profit. Tonight, that math would stop working. Across the ocean, a head of state was rehearsing a speech he'd delivered a version of 40 times before. Reassurance, stability, nothing to fear. He'd said it so often he'd almost forgotten it wasn't true. Tonight, he wouldn't be able to say it at all. Nobody knew exactly how it would happen. Would liars go mute mid-sentence? Would their voices simply refuse the shape of a falsehood? Would confessions pour out of people who'd spent decades burying them? All anyone knew was that midnight was coming for everyone at the same time, in every time zone, all at once. And there was no version of the truth anyone could hide from. Peter told his wife at 9:40 p.m., not because midnight forced him to, because he realized, watching the clock, that the only thing worse than the truth coming out was the truth coming out, because he had no choice. "I wanted you to hear it from me," he said, "not for whatever happens next." She didn't forgive him. She didn't scream either. She simply said, "You had 11 hours to decide that, and it took you until now." Raina Cho didn't confess. She ran. By 10:15, she was on a highway with 2 suitcases and a car full of cash, trying to outrun a deadline that didn't care about geography. She didn't understand, yet, that it wouldn't matter where she was standing. The truth wasn't coming from outside her. It was already inside her, waiting for a door to open. At 11:58, the head of state stood at the podium anyway. Cameras rolling, millions watching, most of them not for the speech, for what would happen when it stopped being one. He opened his mouth to say the sentence he'd said 40 times before. The economy remains fundamentally. He stood there, silent, not because he'd lost his voice, because the sentence, for the first time in his career, simply wasn't true, and his mouth would no longer make the shape of it. At midnight, the world didn't end. It just got very, very loud, and then very, very quiet. Marriages ended in single sentences. Business deals collapsed in boardrooms. Politicians resigned mid-broadcast, live, on air, saying things they'd rehearsed not saying for entire careers. And somewhere on a highway, Raina Cho pulled over, put her head on the steering wheel, and said out loud, to no one, the exact amount of money she'd stolen, because for the first time in years, she couldn't say anything else. Peter and his wife sat in silence in their kitchen, past the deadline, past the reveal, into whatever came next, which, it turned out, was simply 2 people finally talking without either of them managing the conversation. Nobody ever found out who or what caused that night. No group claimed it. No science ever explained it. But 6 months later, sociologists noticed something strange in the data. Divorce rates spiked in the week after. So did resignations. So did a very specific, very quiet category of crime reports. People turning themselves in for things nobody had ever suspected them of. But something else spiked too. Trust. For one night, humanity lost the ability to lie. Most people assumed that would break the world. Instead, it turned out the world had already been broken. Quietly, slowly, one small lie at a time, long before midnight ever arrived. Midnight didn't destroy anything. It just made everyone finally look at what was already there. Nobody knows if it will happen again, but everyone remembers exactly what they said at 11:59. If tonight was the night you couldn't lie, what would you have to say by midnight? Comment below.